Millions of peaches, peaches for free. Millions of peaches, peaches for me. So look out. Why am I doing an ode to peaches? Because we're talking about Parasite on today's Popcorn Talks Anatomy of a Movie. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Anatomy of a Movie.
Welcome back to Popcorn Talk Network's Anatomy of a Movie. I'm your host, Demetri Panos. Thank you for joining. Where, yes, we should start off almost every show with the presidents of the United States of America doing peaches. And why peaches? Well, did you know that peaches could be a weapon? Yes, they are weaponized in Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, which is what we're going to break down and discuss with you today. Thanks for tuning in. My glorious host to my right, we're a pair today. Even numbers. That's all good. Mina, welcome. How are you?
I am so good after watching this movie. I shouldn't be good after watching this, but I'm so good after watching this.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, you folks, if you're brand new to the show, just know that this is very spoiler-filled. We talk, like this isn't your average review show. We will talk about and even debate, perhaps, various plot points of the movie and twists and turns, which this movie has some twists and turns in it. So if you have not yet seen Parasite, put us on pause. Understandably, the movie is only currently just a little over 33 screens. I think it expanded this weekend. But if you have watched Parasite, please feel free. Tune in, stay tuned in, comment if you'd like. But now it's going to be, it'll be up there in perpetuity and last for as long as this movie is out in the marketplace. So there you go. You've been warned about spoilers. As we do with every anatomy of a movie, we talk opinion. See, like or dislike this movie. So Mina, I'll start with you. What did you think of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite?
Parasite was an incredible film. It was literally a masterpiece when it came to storytelling. I don't think we've seen storytelling like this in a while. And this is like coming off from the high of seeing Joker twice. And I do think that it is very similar to Joker thematically, and we'll get into that later. But I was so impressed with this film. It captured my attention every second, and it's rare for a foreign language film to be able to do that when you're reading captions throughout the entire movie. But I couldn't take my eyes off the screen or off the performances. It was so mind-blowingly good.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I agree. This was one of the movies that I was extraordinarily looking forward to seeing at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it's one film that actually lived up to its expectations, if not exceeding them. It already had been at other festivals, and people had been talking about it, and sometimes there's the overhype machine. And when that happens, we've all had this happen to us before. You get trapped in that overhyped machine. You actually finally get the chance to see the movie, and you can go, "What the hell was everybody talking about?" This movie, for me, it wasn't affected by that. It actually hit. It was as good as many people had said, and it came out of Toronto with a lot of big buzz. Yes, this is you can look at this movie in so many different ways. You can look at it casually as a crime drama or a con movie. It's a social satire as well. Whichever way you want to look at it as a casual observer. To your point, some people are afraid of reading subtitles. My only problems with subtitles is sometimes they're just too damn small and you can't read them. But it was perfect here. I think Neon, in making their hard drives and doing their post, they did a great job with the subtitles and the subtitling. There wasn't anything that was missed or anything that was misunderstood. I do think that it was near perfect. There wasn't any ounce of fat in this movie. It was very scalpel precise as to what the director, who also wrote the movie, wanted to say. It was all up on screen. It's a movie where there aren't really any villains, so to speak. But
the villain is capitalism.
Well, I just think that there were no villain characters in this movie other than people being misunderstood, and everybody was doing not so good things. So, and at the end of the day, there's a twist. Some people, it may turn off a little because it gets a little violent, a little bit gory, where up to that point, the movie had none of that. But ultimately, the movie is a perfect piece on well, the haves and have-nots. You had mentioned Joker. That's another movie. I think this movie works because it is in South Korea. So you're able, again, taking it out of the Americas where it's extraordinarily close to you. When you put it somewhere else, or as we talked about ad nauseum a lot in Joker, you put it in another time, you're makes it easier to hold the mirror up to current society of wherever you are.
Right.
So whatever the issues in South Korea become universal to whatever the society is, including our own. So I really think that the movie works fantastically on that. So so let's start breaking this down a little bit. So I did talk about, like, if you want to go into this movie and seeing it casually, it's a con movie. In essence, it is an amazing, entertaining, and at times hysterical grift as to what the Kim family is doing. Also, I'm going to lay this out just to make life easy for us, the hosts, and for you, the viewers. We're going to call the Kims. We're going to call them by their families. Kims. I don't want to butcher any names and be disrespectful, is basically it. People worked really hard on this movie. The director wrote names and their full names. I don't want to butcher the names. And I want to say the Kims, just for the sake of our conversation today, we're the poor. They're the have-nots. Where the Parks are the haves. They're the rich.
Right.
We can go Papa Kim, Mama Kim, the sister, the brother, but we're going to try to delineate so that the audience, can follow along, and so that we don't get confused either.
Right.
So, yeah. So I was saying, so the Kims, they weave this amazing con job on this rich family, and basically that's a crime. And they get it, they seep into their house, and that's one of the things I really loved about this movie is you can look at it in different ways. The social satire way, of course. I mean, this movie is a social satire about again the rich and the poor, the societal structure. So, what were your thoughts on crime drama, social satire? Can it have it both ways?
Yeah, I think 100% you can have it both ways. I think what started out as a con movie ultimately morphed into something that we understand as social satire, where you have the haves and the have-nots, and that stark contrast is exemplified throughout the entire movie, with everything from the production design to, the microaggressions in the movie. And in some ways, you can argue that this is similar to, like, Arthur Fleck's character in Joker. This is kind of the story of one character's ultimate descent into madness as a result of the microaggressions he faces repeatedly throughout the movie.
And what character is this?
Mr. Kim. So this is
Okay.
the head of household.
Right.
Obviously, something happens at the very end of the movie that he does. We kind of see it coming because we see his anger repeatedly throughout the movie, the humiliation he faces as a result of being poor and having what is said in the movie, the poor person smell. Oh, I don't ride the subway. It was so insulting, and
Yes.
and I don't think that it was, the park's intention to be cruel or to be mean, but it just shows you, like, the perspective of the rich and the poor without vilifying this rich family. Because keep in mind, the rich family, they're so nice and they're so hospitable and they're so, kind to everyone in this family, but at the same time there are a lot of microaggressions. There's a lot of, like, condescending, this person smells this way, we don't take the subway, we're gonna need you to work, we're paying you overtime. Just a lot of talking down to.
Yeah, that's I don't think they're kind. I personally, I don't think that those rich people, I think the kids are kind because they're not corrupted yet. The adults, they're really not that kind. They don't know that the they don't know that the Kims are poor. They don't know where they come from. They don't know that they live in what is garden apartment living. They con their way into this, and they lied about saying that, oh yeah, my brother was a limo driver. We did this, and it's like they lied about, oh yeah, I'm an art teacher, and they didn't know that who they were. Yes, they were the help. They were the help, but they weren't like nice people. And on the flip side, the Kims weren't happy with their lot in life. At least the way I looked at it, and they wanted that better. They tried hard. They're making pizza boxes.
Yeah.
Pizza boxes. So, and I think one of the things that really showcases a lot, like in their strata, in their class strata, the Kims were good people that were struggling, right? And you can tell by their place in society by, one of the things there, and we're going to talk about this, is, we're going to talk about living area.
Mm-hmm.
The Kims lived in what is affectionately known as a garden apartment living, where it's very public. It's a semi-basement. It's not necessarily fully underground. They can see the street at street level, but they're always looking up at life going on around them, where the Parks were living in a castle-like gorgeous, I don't know if you'd call it a mansion, but it was a beautiful house. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's modern design. They repeatedly mentioned
lots of glass.
The person who created the building and how, this is cream of the crop architectural design. So
absolutely. Yeah, it was cream of the crop, but it was a lot of glass, and they're literally looking down at society.
They're also looking out a lot from their place of privilege without realizing it. They're always looking outside.
Absolutely. It's almost like they're fiefdom. their territory.
Right.
That it was almost like medieval times. It's like, look at all this land that we have. Look at all the people coming to us. Look, we're having a party, and everybody will entertain, perform, and cook for us. So that was one, I thought, fantastic way to showcase what's happening, what's going on, the societal structure. And it was the Kims, or I should say, it was the Kims who, they knew what rich is, but the rich don't necessarily know what poor is. Mm-hmm. So they don't see that. And I felt that there was a line much later on in the movie after the flood where Mrs. Park was like, yes, at least it washed away all the filth. Washed away the filth.
Right.
And, symbolically saying, it got rid of all that.
The family, I think this really illustrates that when you're in a place of privilege, oftentimes you're not even aware of that privilege that you have. And that's illustrated not just in the way that, the Parks look at the poor, but it's also illustrated by the fact that even though the Kims are a family that is really suffering, really struggling to make ends meet in every which way, that there are even people below them where they don't even realize their privilege and how there are people living in the basement. Spoiler alert.
Well, but there are the people outside who they're just stuck in this quagmire, trying to get out, and
that's the thing. They're looking out for themselves. They're trying to get out.
They're trying to get better. They're trying.
It's as if very symbolically, the Park family doesn't even know that there's someone below them living underneath them.
The people under the stairs. And we'll get to that because that's when we get into a lot of the twists, so to speak, in this. I want to talk about too the other thing that I felt was that definitely put, it was symbolic of the haves and have-not, was technology. Mm-hmm. Technology, specifically their methods of communication. The Kims like we all do, whether it's apartment living or whether we're in a building or whatever, you're always trying to look for a cell signal. The Kims were always looking for a cell signal in their house, and they were grifting off of, oh, so and so's home. We can just steal their Wi-Fi, and they're always like trying to get Wi-Fi on their phones from their Garden View apartment, where the Parks had it all. They had no problem at all with their technology, with their means of communications and their cell phones. I mean, you'd agree.
Even their outdated forms of communication are very advanced. The walkie-talkies,
Yeah.
like everything. It's just a luxury item for them at that point. It's not
Absolutely.
even a necessity. It's like,
No.
let's have walkie-talkies. They have security cameras.
Right.
They have
Oh.
all this high-tech, high-tech technology. And at the end of the day, it's funny how, like, there are like these antiquated forms of technology that end up being the form of communication for the Kim family, like
For
the
the
Morse
Kims.
code.
It was Morse code, and Morse code again. Who uses Morse code today? But Morse code was being used right under the Parks' eyes. They thought there were power outages going on, which is kind of funny.
Right.
And again, though, but it's also one of the wonderful twists in this movie, because unbeknownst, like, you just don't know what this is, and I can't imagine. There has to be. I wish I was smart enough to pick up that was Morse code going on through that lighting, but you, as an audience, I believe what they were telling me. Oh wow, yeah, we're having problems with these lights. Why are they dimming? What's going on? And when you find out that it's Morse code, you're like, oh. And think about how far back Morse code was being used.
Right.
So, and of course, the rich, they don't know. They don't know.
It's not even in their.
Nope. Wouldn't even know.
Yeah, but
Wouldn't even
it's
know what
funny.
to do.
It's funny how the child knows, and it really does show you the innocence of children and how.
Sure.
Like, they haven't reached a point where they have to unlearn all these things in society. I think that was very symbolic of the fact that children have their whole worldview open.
Right.
And if they haven't been indoctrinated with like these things of how society works, they
Right.
see things completely differently.
Completely.
So I love that the child
Yes.
was able to understand the Morse code. I
Absolutely.
love that.
And going back to what I said earlier too, the children, at least the Parks children, in a sense, were still innocent. I mean, at least the way I looked at it, there was a sweet romance. There was a sweet romance and a like a charming friendship between Kim's brother and the son, and then the son like the Kim's sister. And it was all like, at first they were thinking, yeah, I'm gonna con you, but there seemed to be something. There was a true friendship, and I think in the middle of the movie, basically what we're getting is how the rich and the poor can coexist. Like, it's not about looking at you as poor. It's about, hey, we're people. You're really nice. You're you're attractive.
It's Aladdin.
You can do right. It's and the only thing that really, as far as the Kims go, there was the stench of being poor. That was the one stigma that throughout the movie they couldn't escape, and they tried to lie about, so to speak.
Right.
But that was the one thing. There was the smell of being poor as opposed to being fresh and rich. But I like that one part, like towards the middle of the movie, like these kids, to your point, they were innocent. It came even for the Kims who were conning these kids. They were still providing them, I felt, like a good, for lack of a better word, service. They were providing an education. And unbeknownst to them, like, we know that they were the poor family. We know that this is a con, but there was something actually positive happening, I felt, amongst the children.
Yeah.
And there was that overlapping. And that was like, we can put these things down. Unfortunately, real life caught up with them. But I liked watching the movie through some of these kids' eyes, because to your point, there was just an innocence. It's like, I'm not looking at you at poor. Like, I'm ignoring, the scent didn't bother them.
Right.
If there was any on the kids, it didn't bother them at all. And that I liked.
Even the youngest child of the Park family said, "Oh, they smell the same. Oh, like, Papa Kim and
Right.
daughter Kim
Yeah.
smell the same." And
Yeah.
he noticed that observation. He didn't have a judgment attached to it. It was just a mere innocent observation. And I think that was also very telling.
Yeah, I agree, and again, to me, it's one of the special parts of this movie. And again, if you can look at it casually, but when you look at it a little bit deeper, you go underneath the surface level. At least that's like a little bit of a positive that I took. I actually wanted the romance to work out, and I think that's something special about the movie because we know it doesn't,
Right.
and tragically it doesn't. But you get sucked in, and I think from the writing and the direction, it really did suck you in that you were buying the kids' relationships in any case.
Even though the son of the Kim family felt so out of place, he even says, "Do you think I belong here?" And she's like, "What do you mean? Of course you belong here."
Yeah.
Like, there was no question about it in her eyes. But coming from a place of like the lack of privilege and looking up, you always feel like you're trying to overcompensate and fit in,
Right.
Especially, given the fact that he's made up all these lies. He has the documents, having gone to college and all of this, but it just shows you that these documents don't even matter. Even the Park mom says, "I don't care about the documents, it's about word of mouth," which just shows you how the rich stay intertwined with their connections.
Right.
And the poor don't necessarily have those connections.
No.
They don't have that built-in wealth. They don't have that generational,
Not at all.
generational wealth or the
Not at
help
all.
that comes with being in a position of power and wealth for so long.
Yep. And to your point too, is the kids. It was just like there was just that innocence. It wasn't. We're learning. We're still in school. They're kids. They're my age. Like why wouldn't I be attracted to this girl, or why wouldn't I befriend this? And yeah, they all smell the same. Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Like why would it? Because they're teenagers. They're kids, and to an extent, they were having a good time. Our adults are a little bit different. Our adults are far more savvy to the world,
Right.
And the differences. And whereas the rich don't, there's a misunderstanding. They don't see their comments as being, I don't want to say racist, but as being hurtful or whatnot. It's just the way that they are. It's the way they've come up through life, and the Kims, you understand the bitterness, and it kind of comes through from the way they plot and plot. But I want to get into, because something that I was thinking about is, and it leads to the twist for me, is I'm sort of kind of playing on the Marvel, the Spider-Man, or absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like, you have to be responsible.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Because absolute power, or in this case, it's wealth, corrupts absolutely. And when the Kims get a taste of that wealth, right, what do? When the Parks decide to go camping, do the Kims go back to their home? No, they party it up as if they're wealthy, as if it's their home. And let's be honest, they're not too kind to other people's property at that point.
Right.
And that was something to me that came out stark. Like, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's almost like, you even see that reflected in the daughter Kim's response. Anytime her father has any sort of empathy for the rich family and says, "Oh, they're such a nice family. They've never done anything wrong to us. They're so nice to us." She's like, "Why do you care about them? Why do you care about even the people that we got fired? Like, you should only care about us. Like, nobody else cares about us. You should be caring about us." And she has this, like, very intense mindset of, we've been screwed over by society. It's time to put our interests first, and who cares about the rich?
Right.
And this is just a sentiment that is very much expressed in this movie, and we saw it in Joker too. We saw, everyone just like going crazy in the streets, protesting and wanting to overthrow the 1%ers, and we kind of like feel that from them. I mean, look at how hard it must be to go from living in that house in that squalor, no Wi-Fi, complete filth, being talked down to for a pizza folding job by someone who's way younger than you, You know, just that feeling of humiliation. Your only joy and like your leisure is looking at someone outside of your window urinating outside and wondering, is he going to urinate? Is he not? So they're not living the life, and then they're exposed to this completely different world that feels like a dream world to them, and now it's currently a reality. They're just going to soak up every second of it. They feel like it's theirs at this point.
They feel like it's
They've earned
theirs,
it.
that
They're conning.
But they aren't. But they could live a life. Again, there are plenty of rich people who you might not even know that are rich, but they're living a life that even those rich people, they weren't so footloose and fancy. I mean, it's their home.
Yeah.
You know, they're respectful. It's their home.
Right.
They were living this rich life like, hey, look at what we got now. It's almost like they're that like the young sports like star that gets all the money thrown at, and they trash hotels and whatever. This is what they were doing, like without the knowledge, without like they could have been nice. They could have stayed there. They could have had a cookout. They could have enjoyed the view, the stars, which we get some of that. They could have camped out. They could have enjoyed everything. But no, they had to really party it up.
But think about this. They have to stay so composed and on their toes all the time around the Park family. And the minute they're gone, it's like, oh, okay, I can finally breathe. I don't have to put up this front anymore.
And then
all hell breaks loose.
All hell breaks loose from...
We know
from
it's coming.
Party, you know.
We know from the lightning and the thunder that the ominous lightning that something horrible is going to happen.
Right. And going back to Joker for a second, where Thomas Wayne called the poor clowns, that was very specific. Mrs. Park, filth. It washes the filth away. And that's exactly what happens. We get the thunder, the lightning, the rain's coming down. But we also get the former housekeeper comes back and she's in a sense, she's the foil of it all. She kind of sniffs out what's going on, and they got to figure out a clever way to get rid of her, because she ain't going anywhere, this woman. Let's be honest. We don't know why she's not going anywhere, but she's going to hold on to this job.
She has nowhere to go.
But there's another reason from the people under the stairs, or a person under the stairs. She doesn't want to lose her job, and hence come the peaches. Peaches, peaches, and peaches. They find out she has this extraordinary allergic reaction to peaches and fruit. A sweet fruit, peach, becomes weaponized.
Right.
They weaponized they didn't use an apple on purpose. They use peaches. This innocent fruit becomes the downfall of this caretaker. And that scene, as cruel, and again, this is where satire comes in, it was kind of a funny scene, but the mere fact that you're weaponizing this sweet fruit.
It was artistically, it was done so well artistically. The slow motion of it, the sprinkling in, the music that accompanied those themes. Every little piece of it was pure art, just watching it. I have to go watch Parasite again, because there's so many gems in this movie that... Everything about it is a masterpiece. It's not the storytelling only. It's everything.
It's the way the story unravels. The way
everything fits together perfectly.
Somebody's taken down by peaches. And the director, Bong Joon-ho, he had said when writing this, he was inspired by an actual life. By an actual life event when he was in college, and he was on a training trip and just going to drink, he admits, really. And one of his friends said he was severely allergic to peaches, none other than peaches. And he thought he was kidding. And then some other kid went to a nearby grocery store and tossed it at him as a joke. And even though the peach didn't even hit him directly, he turned bright red and had an attack. And wow, he goes, it was like, peaches look so pretty, but when you attack someone with them, he goes, that's really cinematic. And it kind of is, it's so bizarre that you sort of have to laugh at it. Like, could you imagine, like, you just throw a peach at someone and he dodges it, but
Yeah.
it comes so close.
It feels cartoonish in a sense.
Almost. A peach.
Yeah.
Like peach fuzz.
Yeah.
That to me is, and then you see the scene of the daughter like eating the peach, and it's like,
Yeah.
it was just
Let me
classic.
rejoice in
It's
this
like, yes,
sinister moment.
This is the best peach I've ever had in my life. It made me want to go get peaches, and I know I'm not allergic to them, but they really look good.
They genuinely did. Yeah.
So, and I like again, what brings them down essentially is they were corrupted by their pretend wealth. They lived this high life. So now I want to get to where all hell breaks loose, and I want to get to this this scholar rock, the scholar stone, which is given as a gift. And apparently, the scholar stones were something that people in South Korea would collect. Bong Joon-ho had said he, even as a kid, his grandpa, they'd go hiking and they'd collect these stones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's no longer a tradition over there. But in this movie, I felt this stone was symbolic of what the Kim family wanted to aspire to. And then speaking of being weaponized, then this inspirational stone gets turned around and used as a pretty heavy weapon. So as we learn in the movie, and it comes out of nowhere, there is somebody living in the caverns in the basement, in which the Parks don't even know. The bunker.
Yeah, in case of a North Korean attack. Right. That's why the bunker was there in the first place.
They don't even know. It's their own house.
It's under their very nose. It just shows like they're
big rats.
They're complete oblivion about the have-nots.
Right, and it's the it's the woman who's allergic to peaches. Their housekeeper's like husband, and she's kept them down there because they don't have anywhere to go. And
he has loan sharks coming after him. That's why he's escaped. And I actually was doing some research about this. Apparently, he was the person who owned the cafe upstairs above the Kim family. I didn't pick up on that away.
I didn't pick up on that either.
Yeah, it's just so interesting how everything is interconnected, and that kind of speaks to like the middle class struggle of entrepreneurship.
And here we go, like again, and it comes out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
You are like really shocked, but I think what's genius about this movie is there's a reason for it. Like it's one thing to have a twist, but if it's a twist just for twist's sake. Right? Because it's not. Well,
I'm just kidding.
I'm just saying if it's if it's a twist that doesn't necessarily perpetuate the plot, because we don't see this coming at all. I don't think that there were any visual clues. If there were, folks, please comment. Let us know how we might have figured it out, other than the sounds. But again, as an audience member, when you're not being fed a lot of information, you believe what's being told to you.
Right.
Because they believe it too. Like the Parks weren't hiding this. They were just like, what
they
the
didn't
hell?
know. And
right.
it's so funny because it simultaneously came out of nowhere, but it was so well placed and so meaningful, and it made so much sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a twist that makes sense.
When she first opened the pathway to go in there, at first I was like, is she gonna go? Is this like some sort of like vault of money that she knows about, that the Kim family or the Park family is just hiding a bunch of wealth? And then I thought, wait, is the Park family like hiding a body under there? Are they serial killers? Like I didn't even know what to think. It was insane. I didn't know like what the twist would be, because I kept hearing Parasite is about class, but Parasite is also a thriller. I'm like, how is it a thriller when I was watching it? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh my god, what if that's what this is? What if this is like Gone Girl or Disturbia?
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, I had no idea what the hell was going on. And even when a person shows up, you're like going, who the hell is he? Like, what the hell is going on?
He's
here?
The ghost.
And he's the ghost. And he was, well,
he was, because
he's a ghost.
He was
metaphorically,
already dead. He was already dead.
Metaphorically, he's a ghost because nobody can see him.
Yeah.
And they can hear it, but they also turn their back to it. he's a ghost to society because nobody knows where he is.
Right.
Other than the sounds that he'll creak or whatever. But it's just so crazy, and that actually is the start of how everything really unravels, and then unravels kind of quickly. We have our parks who are like, oh, let's just throw an impromptu party, right? We're gonna have an impromptu birthday party. Let's call all our good friends, and they start barking out their orders. This is what we want for food and all this. And meanwhile, the Kims are like, well, okay. And the Kims have a sense that they know what's happened at this point.
Yeah.
But they still have to keep appearances up because, again, the way I looked at it is they're still holding on. Like, we could still make this work. We could.
Yeah, I mean, the father says, when they're in that shelter area,
right.
When son Kim asks, hey, like, what's going on? What's our plan? And he's like, what I found out about life is that even when you plan something, that we can all end up here because of a flood. So the best plan is to have no plan. And at that point, you're like, wow, something bad is going to happen. Something terrible is going to happen.
Right. So the birthday party, we have Ki Woo, who is the son. He sneaks down in the basement bunker during the celebration with the rock to confront said husband, or Jun-si, and he uses it as a weapon to smash poor Ki Woo's head.
Yeah.
That was, and that's a heavy rock, right? And this is where the violence starts. And again, I remember watching it. There were some people who actually kind of turned off because up to that point, you don't get any sense as to what's going on. But this is where symbolic for societal clash.
Mm-hmm.
Jin comes upstairs all bloodied.
Yeah.
And he goes to the garden party, the actual party.
My heart.
And then, he kills the Kim's daughter. That to me, I want to talk about this. That to me affected me because I like that character. And yes, she was unsympathetic to, she was the one that was like, we stick to the plan.
She was the worst, though. Like, she was the one doing all of the conning, but you can't help but be so fascinated by her brilliance.
Absolutely.
Like, this is like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels level conning. Like, without revealing the ending of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
She was a grifter. She knew how, she was good. She was good. She was really good. And there was a method to her madness. Mm-hmm. And she was the one, more or less, she was the rock of the family. She kept them like, no, we care for us. Nobody else does. We do. She was almost like the matriarch,
right?
Like she's
like, I'm gonna get this done.
We're gonna get this done. But at the same time, she only was really softening up with the boy that she was tutoring.
Yeah, that's true.
That's when she became sweet. That's when her other side opens up. That's when you go, she's really a sweet kid. Mm-hmm. Like, I want this to work because it was working in the movie.
Right. And
again, the dopey romantic I am, of thinking, maybe at the end of the day, not knowing where this movie is going to go. Mm-hmm. And as a point, I didn't think that everything was going to, wrap up neatly and everybody was going to, skip to see the rainbow and everybody holding hands and it turns into the Sound of Music, but you still kind of hoped for it and you saw softer sides, even with the parents.
Which parents?
Kims.
The Kims.
Even when they were talking with the Parks about even the driving, Mr. Park was actually taking some of Mr. Kim's advice. They were having conversation. Mm-hmm. Conversation about things, and for short periods, you could have taken the money away, and people were on the same level. They were just talking. They were coexisting.
Right.
And those are the parts of the movie that makes the end, I think, so impactful. And this is where the societal breakdown happens. So as soon as Sister Kim gets killed,
right,
Mama Kim comes in and kills Jun-see.
Ooh, with that skewer.
Oh, yeah.
With the kebab skewer. It's so funny because, he was malnourished the entire time, barely had food, and the way he dies is by the skewer of food.
Yep.
It was so, nothing in a movie happens by pure coincidence.
Right.
Not with a director like this.
No, and it was, it gave new meaning to churrascaria, to Brazilian barbecue. Like that party, I went to a garden party and everything went amok. And everything went amok.
Mm-hmm.
We had the death of the sister. The truth comes out, but everything is ruined. Everything ends up being ruined for everybody.
Right.
Which is crazy.
It was like
everybody lost everything.
This movie was simultaneously so shocking. I had there were so many moments where my jaw literally dropped in the theater and I gasped, but I also laughed so much.
Oh yeah.
And the whole theater laughed. It was a packed theater. We kept laughing at so many different scenes.
It's a funny movie.
It's just when we know how naive the mother is and how she's just kind of crazy and she's like, oh my god, he saw a ghost and let's do art therapy and how gullible are these people. There were so many scenes I couldn't stop laughing even amidst the horror of what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, that to me is that is like definition of satire.
Yeah.
Where it makes fun of something potentially horrific,
exactly.
whether it's war.
It
whether
literally,
it's
it reminds me of the Joker line when, Arthur Fleck says, some people think my life is a tragedy, but my life is really a comedy. Mm-hmm. And it's that perspective of evil things and tragedy. Right. At the root of it, there is comedy there.
Yeah, there can be. I mean, I don't look at the Joker as there wasn't much to laugh about in the Joker. The Joker. There wasn't.
It was dark.
It was dark.
But there were some moments where you kind of laugh because this is shocking or this
when he
is
walks
so
into
perverse.
a door. Yes, I like this movie actually had comedic moments, and when you look at really good satires too, they'll make you laugh. Mm-hmm. Mel Brooks has had some amazing satires, and they'll make you laugh. Duck Soup is a satire. It's a brilliant comedy. It's a satire. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Love the Atomic Bomb. It's a satire, but it's extraordinarily funny. And that movie ends quite darkly as well. And here, this ends quite bloodily. And everybody, even the rich, even the Parks, lose too. Because as we find out, so Sun Kim survives his wounds, comes out of the coma. And I thought there was that brilliant scene where he goes back to the house and now there's a German family living there, right? So the Parks are gone. Mm-hmm. Son Kim has lost his friend.
Yeah.
Has lost this tie to
Let's not forget what the father did,
yes.
Out of rage.
Right.
He sees that the patriarch of the Park family, does this thing where he goes,
right,
which means he's smelling that whiff of the subway poverty whiff that he had been talking about earlier throughout the movie. And we see it in his eyes. I actually thought this was going to happen earlier when he was driving because his eyes he starts squinting out of anger. And I thought he was going to purposely try to crash the car or do something. Right. But he actually does it later where he loses it and he stabs him. Yep. And I think he was shocked at what he had done. I don't think he had. It wasn't something that was premeditated. It was literally something in the moment. He was so triggered and could not bear the humiliation, the grief of losing his daughter, seeing his son being carried by his girlfriend. It was a lot for him to process, and I think at that point he just had descended into madness in that moment.
Snapped, and then we learn through Morse code, he's the person under the stair. Right. And the son.
I already knew that. Yeah. I already predicted that he would go there. Where else is he gonna go?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that, but I like the scene where he's writing the letter and he's believing that, don't worry, someday I'm gonna buy this house and all that. And there was a lot of it was a very interesting way to end the movie because, well, we don't know. It kind of leaves things to interpretation.
Right.
Which, again, I love these sort of endings and how you can look at it, interpret it, and that to me it leaves you thinking, but yet for 2 hours and 10-15 minutes you're still entertained, right?
Right.
But it's because of the way it unravels and the journey that the audience goes on. When you walk out of the theater, it leaves you thinking about it.
Right.
So what was your take on the end?
I definitely thought it was a fantasy. I thought that was happening inside of his head. And the reason I say this is because earlier in the movie, after the flood, earlier in the movie when they're all sitting around and they're drinking, Sun Kim is talking about how he's going to marry the girl one day of the Park family, the wealthy girl. It's like this, Titanic dynamic of, the poor Leonardo DiCaprio character and the bougie Kate Winslet character that still loves despite the social class barrier. And he goes into detail about it. We're going to live this lavish life. We're going to live here. And, it looks like Mama Kim is going to be doing the laundry for her daughter-in-law. And that's definitely a slap in the face. But he's just envisioning this, rich and complex dream. And it's this fantasy. And he's like, I want this. This is going to happen. And because we have had a scene where we see what it's like to dream out loud, and then we have another scene where he's talking about, one day we're going to live here and it's going to be me, you, and Mom, and it's going to look like this. The reason I say it's the fantasy is because he already had alluded to a previous dream that never came to fruition.
Right.
And it's told in the same tone that that it's not even possible, and they haven't even aged at all.
Right.
How did they accumulate the wealth? There's just too many unanswered questions where that it's a fantasy, even though it's left open to interpretation.
There's that. I'll go back to I do believe that Sun Kim actually did believe, and again, it just goes back to he had this relationship with this girl, the strata, the being rich or being poor didn't matter to him. There was obviously something there, and you could understand how he could go, I'm going to marry this girl. I'm in love with this girl, and I believe, well, she was the one that's carrying him out. She loved him. There was something there. So had it gone a different way, we don't know, and it's hard to even talk about because it didn't go that way. It went this way. I believe in his head, in his innocence, he believes that he could get his dad out at some point. But realistically, that's going to be very hard to do.
How is he going to do it?
Right. And it's kind of sad because as much as things have changed at the end, they kind of almost stay the same. They're just in a different position.
They go back to their lives.
And Papa Kim, he has even below a garden apartment, so to speak.
It shows that upward mobility is so difficult when you don't have those things built in place to accumulate wealth. You just have yourselves, and the fact that they were even able to get to that place through conning is beyond impressive, because it shows that they have the intelligence, they have the smarts, they have the work ethic. And despite having all these things, they still have to put up a front just to blend in because of class. I think it says so much about how this society is just so unfair to them. They never asked to be born into this. This was literally the birth lottery. Why should someone Mama Park have all of this when we see that she's a very naive character? She doesn't have the intelligence or the brains or the weight or the work ethic that
her husband has a work.
He does.
He's
but
you're right.
She doesn't cook. She doesn't clean. No. She doesn't really provide value. She's pretty.
Yeah.
But she's nice-ish.
Sure.
But she doesn't have the wit and the charm and the personality that everyone else does. But she's still in some ways you like to watch her on screen because she's just so oblivious.
Yeah, and she hadn't really had to work for what her husband gave her. So and then in the end credits where we have Choi Woo-shik, who plays brother Kim, he sings the song about how it takes him 564 years to save up money to buy the house. So that kind of tells you Troy is hopeful that his character will find a way around this. I do hope that the family reunites, but it's more realistic to leave the viewers in the dark, much like Mr. Kim's cursed basement situation. And that to me too, by leaving that in the dark, again, when you walk out of the theater, it gives you something to chew on, and that's why I think we did the Joker in 2 parts. That's why I think those kind of movies are great to open up for discussion, to do this, and they make it. And it's entertaining.
Yeah.
The movie's entertaining. Yes, it's shocking.
It's funny.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about society. And
right.
I found so many parallels, not only between, Parasite and Joker, but also between Parasite and Us. And we talked about Us earlier in the year.
We talked about
the
Us.
haves and the have-nots, and literally the tethered and how they live underground. This is literally that same concept of there's always, your doppelganger living in the shadows below.
Yeah.
It's like that could have been Kim, that could have been Park, had they been born into a different situation. That's not really something you have that much control over.
No.
So I thought that was great.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, let's go into Oscar run. So personally, I think it's a lock for best foreign film.
Yeah.
That's what South Korea has nominated and put forth. I can't see any other movie doing that. You're in agreement with
I'm
that?
in agreement. I mean, I recently saw a movie called Songs of Solomon, which I just thought was incredible. It was produced by Nick Vallelonga, who won the Oscar last year for Best Picture for Green Book.
Right.
And I thought that movie was great. It's about the Armenian genocide and one composer's life, and it was beautiful, the music, everything. But Parasite is so original.
Right.
We haven't seen anything quite like this before. We've seen bits and pieces thematically, but the way it was done, the humor... this is going to be if this gets nominated, it'll be the only movie from South Korea to be nominated and to win an award.
I mean, yeah, and that's why, so we're in agreement. I believe it's a lock for best foreign film.
I believe that.
But here's the thing. So can it breach the barrier and be nominated? What's the possibility of it being nominated for domestic Best Picture? For screenwriting, and direction. I mean, those are they don't have foreign categories for that. It's just best foreign film. I think the movie is good enough to me that I think that it shouldn't be overlooked just because it's a foreign film. I feel the same way about animated movies too. I don't feel that should be a stigma. If it's a really damn good animated movie and it has a great story. Yeah,
superhero movies, animations, I think it should all be up for grabs as long as it's a good movie.
If it's a good movie. And personally, I don't know what the possibility is here for getting regular nominations, like Best Original Screenplay, like Best Picture, and even Best Direction.
Right.
So.
Well, last year we had Alfonso Cuarón and we had Roma. I don't think this should be much different in terms of, it's also a foreign language film. It's also incredible. I liked it more than Roma.
Yeah, the only difference is that Neon is not going to be able to throw $60 million towards an Academy Award campaign.
True.
It really, look, Neon, I think, thus far has done a fantastic job in the way that they've released and continue to release this movie. They knew they had something. It won the Palme d'Or. I believe. I'm not speaking out of turn. And then they get it in festivals. It's building this great word of mouth. And they released it on 3 locations at first, and then it went 33. It went from 3, they added 30 theaters. Don't necessarily know how many locations right now, but the bottom line is they're doing this very smartly in what is going to continue going forward to be an extraordinarily competitive landscape, whether it be independent film or whether it be commercial film. But I think they've got enough groundswell that once we get into the Academy Awards, that might change a lot of things. And my hope is that studios will take a lesson that if it does get nominated for Best Picture, it did so without it being bought. It did so without spending $60 million to be with the big boys. They're not breaking, Neon's not breaking a Windows rule. They're not leaving money on the table. And a proof of this is, so the movie's already grossed like $1 million stateside, right? Which, when you think about it, it's 1.8 million. So let's just call it $2 million. Okay, that on 33 locations, that's pretty incredible. I mean, when you talk about its international take, its worldwide take, it's $95 million worldwide, right? That's incredible. That's incredible. But I think Neon is doing this. I think they're doing everything right on this movie. You know, and they'll put what they need to back it. The only thing is, again, when you're not a Netflix, like Neon has some other movies, like they're probably going to have Apollo 11 in as documentary. They have another movie called Loose, which is fantastic, which isn't going to, even as great and wonderful and as a fantastic movie as it is, they're going to put their money into this because it's the best bet.
Right.
Where Netflix would just throw a ton of money. And I agree with what you said earlier. I think this is a more accessible film to an extent. Look, there are going to be people who they hate subtitles.
Yeah.
They don't like reading movies. This isn't going to play fantastically in the Midwest, but Neon's distribution knows the perfect theaters to get this in, and I think it'll organically grow. Like, think about it. Before you saw the movie, you heard of the movie, right? Right?
Yeah, and I heard that there were no negative reviews of this movie.
Right.
And I think that is what is going to help this. Because I think when you have a movie that isn't a huge budget film or, you know, is something that's a foreign film, if you have no negative criticism of the movie, whatever, like, review you see online, whatever podcast you listen to, if everyone unanimously is saying, this movie blew my mind, this movie is incredible, of course it's going to get people to see it. It's going to be the push that you need to see this movie, because with other movies, like other blockbusters, it can be terrible and people are still going to see it because they have the financial backing, they have the built-in audience. If it's like a Marvel or a DC franchise, this is something that has no backing in a sense, but it does from, you know, honest people like ourselves, like film critics like us who say, this is a great movie, you should go see this.
Yeah, well, it perpetuates a buzz, especially coming out of like Cannes and Toronto, and like, you know, widest release, 130 theaters, so it may be up there. That's not, again, when you compare it to a huge release like an Avengers movie where you're talking 4,000. Like this is 130 theaters. I think too, the other thing for me is that it makes great movie sense. Like, this is what we always talk about. Oh, this is what I always talk about, is supporting the middle guys, supporting the Neons of the world. When they put out product, you gotta go, because this fuels the box office ultimately. This like churns up more monies when these kind of movies are supported. You don't need superhero movies, but it's great when movies like this grab the attention of people, even though a mass audience may not go see this. Again, many people are turned off by these certain things, by reading. That's fine. They're not going to rely on those people. They are going to, this is playing to an older audience, let's just say an older audience that is starving for this kind of cinematic entertainment.
Right.
And so it caters to that. They know that. And so I think it'll continue to grow. And once that Oscar buzz hits, then you're going to start to see it seeping into more of the commercial theaters, not just the AMC Selects or the Cinemark Selects or the Regal Art House. It'll go into more of the commercials, especially as we go into the holidays. So, so box office has been great. The marketing has been really good. The Oscar campaign is going to be fascinating. I can't wait to see whether it'll jump that fence, get Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay. Personally, I think it should.
I think it should too.
I think it's good enough on its own.
Yeah, I think it'll be exciting to see how this plays out.
Absolutely. So we should start wrapping things up. What are your final thoughts before we go away?
My final thoughts is that Parasite is just such a good movie, and it's so hard to describe without spoilers that you just have to go to the theater and watch this, and watch it one time, watch it 2 times, watch it 3 times, as many times as you want, because I genuinely think, much like The Joker, this is a movie where you will constantly find hidden gems, hidden meanings. There's a lot of symbolism there,
Absolutely.
a lot of social commentary, and a lot of laughs in a very dark way. There's a lot of laughs. It's so entertaining, and deep and thought-provoking. It's everything wrapped into one, and I'm not surprised that it's having such a great reception so far from critics.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think people should go out and see the movie. I think that they'll enjoy it. I think that it lives up to the hype. It's one of those few movies that actually does live up to the hype. So, go see Parasite. If you have seen Parasite, please tell us what you think online. Go into YouTube, write up some comments, tell us what you thought of it. So, Mina, where can people find you as we wrap up?
You all can find me on Instagram at Mina Makes Magic. I have another Joker video coming out, you guys. I found even more Easter eggs the second time of my viewing, so it's another Easter egg video, so stay tuned for that on my Instagram and on Popcorn Talk.
Right, and you can find me here on Popcorn Talk Network's Anatomy of a Movie, also an occasional guest on LAOFCS. And on Meet the Movie Press. So stay tuned. We have way more movies. We're going right into the holiday season, so it's going to be extremely busy. Ton of movies, and we'll try to get through as many as possible. We appreciate you tuning into us. Thanks. We'll see you at the movies again. Take care for now. Bye.
See ya.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.